Before we get this video underway, this video is sponsored by Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve is an adult store giant that has been around for an extremely long time that will undoubtedly make things for you much more enjoyable if that's something you would like to indulge in. Adam and Eve is hooking you up with code HONEST, which will provide 50% off one item plus free shipping in the US and Canada. Some exclusions may apply. They have a 90-day no-hassle return, 24/7 customer service, and 20% of the profits goes towards fighting HIV around the world. So you would definitely be supporting a great cause and helping people while helping yourself. Being a little selfish and selfless at the same time. Being multifaceted is a great thing. And the person who we're going to talk about today has been quite multifaceted in her career, with her bending over into different genres, her dancing, and constant evolution. Britney Spears was the quintessential 90s teen pop diva. She was, quite the spearhead for the genre and was one of the first mega superstars in a long time up until that point. She broke out with the now iconic hit Baby One More Time that featured a video and lyricism that could be seen as racy for a teenager, but in the end it did nothing but multiply her success. The album of the same name further solidified her as a teen idol and made her sleek and sometimes gritty baby voice a staple of pop culture. The album went on to spawn multiple hits including Sometimes, You Drive Me Crazy, and the most underrated single from the album Born to Make You Happy, which by the way also caused a little controversy. It was alleged that the original concept of the video was supposed to portray Britney missing her ex-lover who she was pregnant by, which is why in the beginning of the music video you could see her lying on the bed sort of cradling her stomach. But after this news leaked to the public, it received a ton of backlash for supposedly promoting teen pregnancy, and the original idea was scrapped. Controversy or not, the album went on to sell over 25 million copies and is commonly credited with reviving teen pop. This is essentially the pinnacle of teen pop and the best teen pop you could get from the 90s. Dare I say the Bible of teen pop. With this album, she became a worldwide phenomenon and is also the best-selling album by a teenage artist in history. So how would she follow this hugely successful album up? Seems a bit intimidating, right? You became an international pop icon with your first album while being a teenager. And then with your follow-up, you decide to name it Oops, I Did It Again, which is an extremely bold title. But she proved to do it yet again. The sophomore slump simply wasn't in her foresight. Although not that artistically different from her debut, she did take on a more mature image and supplied some of her best music videos with Oops, Stronger, and Lucky. And the album itself went on to sell over 20 million copies worldwide and over 10 million within the United States alone. And then we have Britney, her first self-titled album, which was the transitional era within her career, and also quite fascinating, because looking back, it's so vividly a transitional period within her career, and you could tell by the subject matter and music on this album. It's such a weird hybrid. It's essentially what you would get if you mix Baby One More Time and Toxic. You get the Britney album, where she's clearly not a little girl anymore, but she's not yet a woman, and is almost at the stage in her career of turning a completely new leaf. You find her straying away from teen idol stardom, but not exactly fully disassociating herself with her roots. This is also an album where Britney herself was coming of age with her artistic choices, being much more involved in writing a handful of tracks on this album. And so she set out to break away from her girl next door image, and she did it in high Britney fashion. She essentially went from singing Tiffany tones with Baby One More Time to what she's more closely associated with nowadays, which is sort of like a mix between Madonna and Janet Jackson. She had Madonna's sex appeal and commercial success, and Janet's dance moves and limited vocal ability, but managed to do a lot with them as they did. However, she was more so the perfect balance of both, and I'm a Slave for You is where it all began. It was extremely shocking during the time for obvious reasons, extremely provocative music videos, song, and title. I think it's safe to say she meant business when she was setting her sights on becoming a more mature artist. Although it came with feeling more liberated, she was called a sellout, mocked for trying too hard, and called unusual for attempts at sexiness, which is a bit funny if you think about it, because now this is seen as classic Britney fare, but back then it was ridiculed heavily. But she still persisted. She let us in on her long journey of struggles with fame on Overprotected, which is a rather prophetic song for her career, but also in terms of production is a callback to the beginning of her career, and even in terms of subject matter. It's reminiscent of her early hit, Lucky. I say that it's rather ironic that the Born to Make You Happy singer used the song titled I'm a Slave for You to prove that she's not born to make anyone happy and reinvent her image. But aside from my poor song title analogies, the album does discuss a lot of important topics that have been in discussion the duration of her entire career, and even more now with the Free Britney movement. She talks about feeling overprotected and hounded by the press. She talks about not wanting to be Cinderella and get away from this pristine, perfect image, and just wanting people to let her be. Despite criticism and a more serious take on subject matter, the album was successful and sold over 9 million copies, but that was much less than her previous albums. Britney is a transitional and coming of age album, and it's also a flawed album. However, the subject matter shows that Britney struggles with the media, her public image, and want for freedom started very early on in her career. And it almost seems like her breakdown was ultimately a natural progression. She's been speaking about how fame has affected her and her music mostly her entire career. Although my analysis on this album is a bit darker, there were many positives to this album. I'm a Slave for You influenced so many stars from Christina Aguilera, from which her single and music video titled Dirty received numerous comparisons. Then artists like Miley Cyrus and Selena Gomez commented on how it influenced them to go in a more adult direction in their career. And let's not forget the 2001 VMA performance with a live snake that has been referenced numerous times and is often regarded as the pinnacle of VMA greatness. The song and the album itself present day has received a lot more praise than it did when it was first released. Even with being a landmark in her career, it tends to fly under the radar a lot of times, when in retrospect it's one of the most important albums of her discography. Not necessarily just because of the music, but because it showed the pop princess making strides to become the icon she is today.